Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson. Today we are continuing our deep dive into Ukiyo-e, the art of Japanese woodblock printing.
Flipping back to Kuniyoshi, though, some of the stuff that he does carry forward to future artists, of course, he does take a lot of inspiration for warrior prints and supernatural subjects. Some of this does carry over into things like, modern comic book covers, like that, those grandiose scenes that depict something that may or may not actually take place in the book, but it draws the viewer's eye. And of course, his fantastic use of composition, and especially in action scenes. One other thing worth mentioning is the visualization of these supernatural mythical scenes and how modern artists will then carry over and add their own twists to this. So the scenes where Kuniyoshi has these flowing forms, you would see them in things like, Street Fighter and martial arts movies.
The way he captures the motion in that still image, and you can almost see where that motion is going.
The other interesting influences of Kuniyoshi can be seen in things such as fighting game character poses. So at the end of a match in, say, Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter, instead of a more tame or this fight is over approach, they are these bombastic still frames of these characters celebrating their victory. And of course, the other thing is his take on parodies and characterization, such as putting cats and everything. This did translate itself over to a lot of modern street art as well. So these kind of unique looking characters, so instead of these supernatural characters that look like these ephemeral wisps, they're these big blocky characters that take up the scene or look unique, or in some cases, cats showing their butt. The other kind of notable idea taken from some of his battle scenes is some modern manga sequences. So those frame-by-frame combats, so such as from Kengan Ashura or Baki, they have those moments of where these characters look like they're deities. They're these monstrous forms that just take up the entire panel. Well, Kuniyoshi is the guy who started that.
Yeah, it's something that's very prevalent and also very powerful. Especially if you have this character who normally just looks like a regular dude, and then something happens, and you see the monster that's inside. It's that moment of what this person is capable of, what they could become, what is inside of them, and also, what does it take to draw that out? What are they willing to unleash the monster for?
Which does actually give me a good reference to cite from that. The comic and Netflix anime Baki. The protagonist, Baki Hanma, son of the demon. Ironically, his dad looks a lot scarier than he does, but Baki, throughout the series, is always displayed as this rounded, jovial character up until the point where he needs to fight. And then immediately they change those soft edges to looking more dynamic, sharper, and just to note that these characters carry power. They just choose not to always display it, which is, again, kind of how Kuniyoshi does his work, too.
It's kind of opposite of some of the stuff that you see in Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, where usually it's all incredibly detailed, but then when it's people being silly, it gets significantly less detailed and rounded, and the arms get all wiggly. It's very amusing.
That is a really cool reference. Yeah, I totally see that, and it does help kind of add that humanization aspect to it as well. Especially when Al does his little funny faces, because it's always with and it's always with cats!
Yes, Al with cats. And since he is so possessing a suit of armor, he often hides cats inside of him, which is amusing.
I do that too. That way I always have a cat on demand.
So I talked about some of the modern art things that have drawn inspiration, but what are some specific techniques that have been inspired and influenced by the work done in Ukiyo-e?
There are several things that are worth discussing on that. The first is, interestingly enough, how most digital artists, as well as printmakers, approach how they both do their craft through what is known as layers. So, well, the Ukiyo-e are creating multiple block prints to put these colors on step by step. Nowadays, artists are still using the same idea of layers to add the lines, the brights, the lows, and help kind of differentiate how that image is to be portrayed at the end.
I have to say, it's fascinating watching artists work on things through the different layers and seeing the way that all combines into the final product. So you go from the rough sketch to what it looks like at the end it's amazing to watch. And it's also fun if you're working on graphic design, because I sometimes will mess around with just doing covers for some of my ebooks. And I do that in Canva, and it doesn't exactly have the same layers, but you can move things forward or backward. It sort of does, it just doesn't have the same way to shift between the layers as you do in something like Photoshop. But just the way that you can combine and ways that you highlight things, because sometimes something that'll make text stand out on something busy is something as simple as an outline on the text. Just that simple extra layer helps it pop more.
Awesome. That actually does sum up everything I was going to say when it came to Photoshop. So, hey, I don't have to actually mock Adobe yet.
You say have to, like you don't like doing it. I get the feeling you very much enjoy it.
What you had spoken about in regards to layer separation and how each layer can control different aspects of what you see of that image, color separation is based off the same theories. So using the individual colors to make combined colors such as blue and red, making a purple that may not be necessarily be creatable at that time without those two colors. Which purple may not be as relevant, but some of the more vibrant blues are created by, again, taking similar ideas to how Bosch glazes over with thin layers of oil. Using the same technique with block printing can also increase the vibrancy of color.
Yeah, and with modern technology, you can adjust the transparency of one layer over another to get just the right shade, or you might be able to add some sort of like gradient effect in the transparency to get a mix of colors that might be difficult to find otherwise.
Especially in that time frame, and even nowadays, being able to have these little color tricks to make something unique that can, like, if you can come up with a unique shade of red or things like that, it's going to be something that would help the work differentiate itself.
And also, sometimes you don't know what color you're looking for until you find it. You just gotta keep messing with it until the vibes are right.
I can totally see some ukiyo-e artists doing that. All right, I made 14 different new shades of blue. I only needed one. Use the other 13 anyways.
You never know when you're going to need those other 13 shades of blue.
Exactly.
Is it bad? My brain immediately went to, that would be an interesting title for a book, actually, 13 Shades of Blue.
13 shades of, oh god damn it, I forgot the one shade of blue I need. Yes, that would be me, folks.
Most artists are very easily distracted by shinies.
Oh yeah. Speaking of shinies, though, one of the other big things that carry over from ukiyo-e is something that does help artists not completely go nuts trying to line up their stencils. Precision registration. So the idea of etching symbols into the corner of the work in order to take the following piece or the secondary stencil that you may need to use and have that being able to be lined up perfectly, which then also does give artists a way they can line it up not perfectly and create new and interesting messages with those works.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what is precision and registration? Because I'm like, I recognize those words individually, but that's genius. It's like with recording when we do the clap sync, so I can know how to line up the audio. Having that one thing that you can use to make sense of the rest of it and combine things. It actually makes me think of, I was reading a book called Here There Be Dragons. And there was this person who was given a bunch of maps of different places, and he had to make sense of it to be able to find out how to get to a certain place on one map, but he didn't know all of the languages. But eventually he was told there was a trick of that, which is something written in the margin of every map. In every language, here there be dragons. Having that one piece, that one connecting thread, can help you piece together everything else. And you could also potentially use it to obscure things or make something different and unique. The book is by James Owens. I highly recommend reading it. It's a great series, and I need people to talk to about it.
I guess the final thing that is worth mentioning for Ukiyo-e, especially for all these from the concept of stencils, is, well, previous generations of artists had these one piece that is always meant to be like in their gallery or their patrons' ownage. This is something that went the opposite route and did mass production. So with these block prints and stencils, it was a lot easier to recreate the work, allowing not just the gallery to hold these things, but to then have them out on the street.
I wonder if part of that inspired how today you can just buy prints. This sounds like it was very likely, if not the first, one of the first examples of being able to mass produce art so someone can have a version of what they see in the museum hanging up on their wall.
Yeah, extrapolating off of that idea, Ukiyo-e can also be seen as a challenge to what the original direction of art back then, that it is meant to be this prized possession, it's meant to be in a gallery, it's meant to be a symbol of religious iconography. Well, Ukiyo-e is, I made a cat doing a shape. You can have it in your home. This allows the artist to not be bound to a particular patron. They're allowed to pursue what interests them.
Exactly, which that's when you get some of the more interesting pieces. That's when they tell some of the more interesting stories. And when they have that freedom to just create things to create, they can just make something special for their friends. I remember when I was first moving into, it was either a dorm or an apartment in college, my sister, Julie, is a painter. So I asked if she would send me something of hers, and she had this painting that she had been working on that wasn't quite finished, and she didn't know how to finish it. So I'll share a picture of this on the social media. It's a picture of a turtle.
Ah.
And if you look around the edge of the shell, it's got my initials.
That is very cool.
That was the part she couldn't figure out how to finish.
For those who are listening in and going, hey, wait, somebody has left these people unsupervised with social media, to you people I say, shut up. And technically only she has access to the social media. So where can they find the said social medias?
You can find us at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Instagram and Threads, and they'll probably get a Blue Sky set up sometime soon. And you can email us with thoughts, questions, answers to questions that we post that we've probably forgotten about, so please include a reminder of what the question was. We have a Gmail account that's unexpected.artlesson@gmail.com.
Perfect.
And eventually we will have a Patreon. Probably by the time this episode comes out, we will have the Patreon figured out.
Also known as, it probably won't be me designing the Patreon.
Probably not.
That's
Said
fair.
with lots of love. We have different strengths, and that's okay.
Spoilers, that's not one of my strengths.
No, but when we get the books going, that's probably going to be a lot of, like, your work with me just polishing.
I appreciate the polishing, because on occasion, I don't always know what I'm doing.
I don't either. I'm just really good at faking it. Speaking of not knowing what we're doing, I see you also have some notes on how it inspired digital tools if you want to go into some of those. Getting back to Ukiyo-e.
Yes, definitely with digital tools, some of the initial ideas and concepts of ukiyo-e and block print have been modernized for different methods of production, such as the use of vector-based designs that echoes the same way woodblocking works, where there are these intricately cut shapes, or in this case vectors, which are digitally created, shapes, where then you're able to kind of adjust and alter to make these stencils exactly how you visualize them.
Which is useful, because sometimes having those tools that you can access and you can use to get it just right, when you can't actually put into words what just right looks like, the more tools that you have to be able to do that, the better, I think, because different tools will work better for different people. Everyone's got their own methods, but having the vector-based designs has multiple uses, especially, I believe, if you're trying to design something to fit to certain specifications. You can figure out the gist of what you want it to be and then adjust it to fit within the specifications.
Honestly, that is a better definition of how vector art works than I gave, so perfect!
Great, because I was only like 85% sure that what I was talking about was actually the right thing.
No, you actually got it perfectly, and of course, continuing off of that, color separation in digital printing, it's the same idea of what you just discussed, that you can experiment with colors and you can see what patterns work and what don't, and even how the separation would work before you got to the stage of putting it to print.
Which is useful, so when you print it, it's actually what you want it to be, not like 2 shades to the right or 2 shades to the left, and then you're just like, that's not what I wanted.
Yeah, it is also what does continue leading on to things such as modern reproduction methods. So, the ability for a color-based printer to lay down these colors in that particular order, as well as following on the idea that, again, as Brianna had pointed out earlier, these works can be reproduced with minimal cost and effort, allowing art to not just exist in the gallery. It exists in your home, it can exist on your computer. It allows people to make stuff less boring. And to all of you who are still using a computer with your default Windows 11 background, I am judging you. Get some art on your computer, dang it.
Another thing that feeds into is, like with print-on-demand books, being able to print one at a time books with the exact same cover where it looks the same. That makes print-on-demand more easily accessible, which allows people like myself and Watson to just put books out there, not have to worry about paying for the printing of multiple books and figuring out where to store them and then having to sell them ourselves.
All great reasons to enjoy the idea of print on demand and the idea of keeping the costs low for the creator, allowing the work to be able to be enjoyed by more people.
Exactly. That's why you should support independent artists and indie authors and give them very nice reviews. Even if you weren't super impressed, give them a 5-star review. They'll love you forever. That has more of an impact than you realize.
And I guess the final bit of that entire idea of digital tool sets is also social media distribution. So it's the idea that these ukiyo prints partially succeeded because they could get everywhere. It's no longer just I saw this particular piece in this particular gallery. No, it's I saw 5 pictures of a cat on a wall and I thought that was cool. And then I saw another 3 pictures of that same cat in a restaurant. It lets the audience see what that art is about and find ways of learning about it. Social media would be kind of the entire signal boosting. This would be, in the case of multiple cats being out there.
You've been listening to An Unexpected Art Lesson featuring Brianna Jean and Watson, as well as the music of Rick the Whitebird. Stay tuned next time to learn more about the art of Japanese woodblock printing. If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon. Get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.